You're good to go.
Okay. The time is 6:02. I'm David Flanders. We're calling to order the July 6, 2021 meeting of the South Kingstown Conservation Commission. First order of business is roll call. Mary Talbot Rabiano.
Here.
Matt Bradywood.
Here.
Vern Wyman.
Here.
Ann Heffron.
Here.
Chris O'Connor. Chris, are you muted?
Sorry, I'm here.
There you go. And I am David Flanders, and we have with us our senior planner, Brian Wagner.
I'm here.
Very good. First order of business is the approval of minutes from the June meeting, June 3rd. Does anybody have any questions, additions, changes to be made? Well, hearing none.
I was not present for the meeting, so I'll be abstaining from a vote on the minutes.
Very good. So hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes.
I motion to accept the minutes
Do I hear a
of June
second?
3rd.
A second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
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 Okay. Opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. That was Vern Wyman abstaining. Discussion of town street tree planting ideas. I know that Jay told me that he resent to you the various memos, the two memos we had on tree planting and watering. Does anybody have any questions on them or any comments or things that maybe I should have added that weren't added?
Well, I've got a question for you, David. Were you leaning towards, on one of those memos, there was a list of 5 or 6 trees. Were you leaning towards any of those as more or less appropriate for the spots we're thinking?
Looking over this, I wrote this back in 2016, and looking over the list, they're all columnar. So don't have if you're talking street trees, I was thinking in terms of sidewalk, for instance. But for instance, another perfectly good street tree, if there's room, is our state tree, the red maple. But I was focusing in this memo on mostly street trees that have spatial restrictions. And that's why I listed these. There are plenty of good trees to do. I mean, in New York City, they planted a lot of ginkgos. They're very tolerant to drought, tolerant to salt. I mean, there's a wide list, but that was the guiding reason behind these particular trees.
Yep.
And
one of the ones you had listed was the pin oak, and those are along the village green. There's that row of oak trees. Those are all pin oaks.
Yep.
But they're not small.
No, they're not. No. And in fact, I'm a big fan of large deciduous trees just because of the positive ecological effects that they have. But there's a really nice columnar maple that Brian Maynard and I planted. It's across from the Whalers business. And it's right next to this business, David Baud, who is a builder. And it takes up the corner of, I'm trying to remember the name, Independence perhaps? Yeah, Independence Lane or so, and Kingstown Road. And now, that was many years ago, that tree has gone huge, but it's not taking any more of that, corner of that lot. So that turned out to be a really good choice. It was something that I learned from Brian Maynard. I hadn't heard of that before, but it turned out to be a really good choice.
And does it have a good clearance for purposes of line of sight and whatnot? Because that's one of the things moving around a community is something that could affect line of sight in the future and maybe not get the full value of the tree ultimately.
Well, I think we're set in about 4 feet from the sidewalk on each side. And I think we're fine on the sight line, but I encourage you all to, drive by and see what you think. And item number 2, in suggestions for replacement street trees, I wrote the medium should be replaced with well-amended soil. One time, and many years ago, our citizens tree group was going to mulch the street trees along Main Street. And then we decided to, once we got the old mulch off, we saw that the so-called the planting medium was really inadequate. We saw one entire pit filled with railroad cinders. And so that's why I'm suggesting that if any of those trees die and they get to be replaced, that would be the perfect time to really empty out that hole and put in some really decent soil with compost, etc.
Is it a foregone conclusion that the Department of Public Works is the one installing these trees?
No, that was done by the DOT, state DOT, and them all to us to maintain. But the same thing held true when it across the street, Rhode Island Bank, I believe it's called, they wanted to donate 6 trees to the town, and they dug up these old dead ones and they put them in, or they had somebody put them in. And I got to say, it was just really bad planting in that the cages weren't removed, the burlap was not removed, and it was really a mess. And they continued to die, and then they're sort of limping along now, all except for one. But that's where those ideas came from. And essentially, to address the 2 most important points in planting, any tree, is the depth of the tree so that you see the trunk flare, and watering. Another thing that has, as I wrote in the other memo, I would like to see us get away from bald and burlap trees. The plantings that I've done over the last few years have been container trees. And it's because, I think I wrote in there, a bald and burlap tree has had like 90% of its roots removed just so that it can, operate or exist in the nursery along with all those other trees that are so close. So bald and burlap, what you'll find is that the roots have started to girdle. So you can slice with a soil knife vertically at 4 or 6 points, and then bring those roots out, fan them out into the planting hole. And they grow very quickly and very healthily as long as they get enough water. So that's the genesis of those comments.
Is there a cost difference between those 2?
Oh yeah, the container trees are much less expensive.
Oh, okay. Even better then.
And also you can get container trees in all different sizes. When we had our 2014 Citizens Tree Planting Program, where we gave trees to 20 people who applied for them, and 50 people applied. They were planted on their property as close to the street as possible, and they owned the tree. We gave them the tree at wholesale cost, and they, because they had, took ownership of it, they did the watering, they did the mulching, and all of those trees but 3 are very, very healthy at this point. So that's another way to go for tree planting programs, is to do that. It's called on-site or setback planting, so that it's on actually the private property of that person. And it's done all over the state and in many other communities around the country. And it's proven very successful just for that reason, that they take enough ownership pride in it that they don't want anything to happen to their tree. And it really is their tree. So it worked out well. It's a good program.
Well, if you want to give me a tree, David, I'll plant one on my property.
Well, I'll tell you, the Rhode Island DEM Forestry Division is giving out trees still. And they've been doing it for the last 3 years. They have like 1,000 trees. And I got some trees for street tree planting that were just left over from last year because they just had, that many trees to offer. So that you can get a couple of trees for free. It's easy enough to do. And they're small. They're about 5-gallon containers, I believe. But when I was doing a bare rootstock tree planting program, those trees grew as fast as a containerized tree just because their roots were just going out into the soil. They hadn't girdled, they hadn't done anything, and they were fast growing trees. So, and bare rootstock is the cheapest kind of tree you can get. They need to be watered every other day as opposed to like twice a week, but they were very successful. The only reason I stopped that program was because DEM began giving away slightly larger trees, and people would rather have those. So, but they're both successful. They're both good.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't even know about that program through DEM. So
Yeah, it's been going for about 3 years, maybe 4.
Cool.
And are we ready to move on to the next item, or is there any more discussion on town street trees? All right, let's move on to talking about some ideas for expenditure of the Conservation Commission budget for next year. I would like to see us get, maybe have this come up in our agenda, every other, just so that the idea fresh and we don't get caught in the last minute with, quick, got to spend the money. And certainly we can continue to fund water monitoring projects. But that's just one idea. I mean, before we were giving money to Save the Bay and their program for educating either 3rd or 4th graders, I can't remember, about stormwater runoff and the effects of that and how it could be mitigated, et cetera. And we've also planted trees. So those are, 3 possible ideas that we can, bandy about. But if anybody else has, any other ideas, let's keep them coming so we can, have a choice of what we want to do next year, and caught at the last minute with not knowing what we're going to do. So does anybody have any ideas now, just to throw out for the record?
I like this. I like the water sampling program.
Yeah. Oh, I have a report on that too. Watershed Watch already has done some of the sampling using our funds, and they found bacteria in not Salt Pond, but Saugatucket Pond to be through the roof. And they had that it was done after a storm, but the bacteria rates were significantly higher than after other storms that they've recorded. So there's something going on, and they're going to do some spot sampling in the river as well, and moving it around just to see if they can, find a source for where it's coming from. But so it was good news and bad news. Our money got used immediately for a really good thing, but the testing, showed that there is a problem. And so I don't have the actual data, the counts. It just wasn't ready in time, but I'll have that for next month.
do they have a website that you can, or that we or members of the public could look up and see what they're finding in different?
Watershed Watch does,
Watershed Watch.
but I don't know. I haven't visited, but yeah, they do. And I don't know how much, like if the data is ready for that of this most recent testing, if it's ready for being put up or not, but you can certainly find out. That would be a good place to start.
Yeah, there might be a big lag between current and what's posted, current research and what's posted.
But at the same time, if just that modest amount of money has resulted in an actionable kind of circumstance that, it's worth its weight, in gold
Yes.
to have that investment yield something that requires attention. So I think
Great.
that was a happenstance thing, but may have proven to be a very good use of those dollars.
Yeah. I agree. Anything else on any more budget ideas? If not, let's move on to a discussion of the USDA cooperative agreement on community compost. I'd be curious to know, I have some opinions on this, but I'd be curious to hear from some other people first about what you guys thought about the whole idea of getting this going, up and running, and maintaining it.
I guess one observation I can make from my former employment is that I know we worked fairly hard in our recycling and proper disposal of solid waste, hazardous waste, and other things. We worked pretty hard at trying to propose and manage a composting process on the campus, or to encourage its development elsewhere off campus that would allow us to channel even food from dining halls, for instance. And we found that at that time, and it goes back a few years now, that the challenge, even for a state institution like that, there were a lot of hurdles that had to be covered and a lot of data that had to be gathered. There's concern about runoff that in any of the storage sites that you might have. And I'm hoping that maybe when you see this happening at the federal level, that there's been some relief or some answers to what, rather than just saying, oh, that'll be challenging for this reason, for that reason. It's encouraging at least to learn that they're going to try to stimulate it in local communities. But are the ratio of details you have to be able to work out and protect against, going to outweigh the joy of doing the work and making that sort of progress in the end.
Yeah.
But I may be dating myself a little if it's reached a point at the federal level where it's now, there's some more acceptable standards and parameters within which you have to work.
Vern, was there a single manager or director of this project?
Well, we were looking at doing it as an adjunct to, obviously we're collecting plant waste, we're collecting food waste, and obviously you got to know what that product is that you have, and so that if you're introducing it into the environment, that you can control its ultimate development as viable mulch. And we had some knowledgeable people, but at that juncture, it seemed as if the challenges were just too great to manage on a day-to-day basis, even with people dedicated to multiple facets of that process to try and optimize our, environmental responsibility as an institution. And we certainly weren't lacking for supply. So I'm encouraged by the language in that piece, but it didn't provide a lot of the next layer might be very informative of what are the standards you have to meet to provide a suitable, manageable site for a municipality, which may not have the same resources that we even had or commanded at the time when we entered into that. Now, for all I know, I'll be honest with you, they may have overcome those with DEM and with other parties by now and are doing pilots or whatever, but I think that's something we should know, which really wasn't covered in that brief summary of what their objectives are. So,
I had some logistical problems. First of all, the deadline for submitting this grant proposal is 10 days from now.
oh wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 15th. That was a huge one. Another one was who will direct the project? Because if we're having citizens bring in material, are we going to screen for meat scraps, for instance? Somebody has to, look at it. I'm thinking of an operation run like the transfer station. It would be smaller than that. I mean, you have a lot of people doing a lot of different things there. Who is going to pick up or drop off the food scraps, and who's going to pick up or distribute the compost, or how will it be distributed? I was just daunted by the scope of this project. I mean, it's huge, and we're just a tiny conservation commission. I mean, and we really have to have the backing of the whole town. And I think they would even have to hire an additional person to be, a director of it. So I think at least for this year, it isn't feasible, but it would take a few months at least for us to work with the town if we want to, and have this work, because we're going to need the town's cooperation for sure. And but right now it's just a huge project. It's frightening.
Is there anything does it specify one way or the other whether you could use grant money from this to hire like an existing composting company? I mean, this I hate to say it, but this might be a good job for capitalism as opposed to volunteers, given the scale of.
Well, does anybody here know of the wonderful Earth Care Farm in Charlestown?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It's incredible. They have these 7 huge piles of compost, because the compost has to be turned on a weekly basis. And the 7 piles are in 7 different stages of completion, but they have serious heavy duty front loaders doing this turning. I mean, it's a wonderful operation, but
They've
it's
expanded pretty dramatically too. They're on the East Bay now.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
know when he was
I'm
a
using some of their soil. It's quite remarkable. It's great.
Oh,
Yeah, I am too.
And it's sourced in so many unique ways. I mean, animal waste from Roger Williams Park Zoo to
Yeah.
to food products in very specific places, and so that you can actually point to where the source is that's
Yeah.
being properly managed to achieve this end. So
Yeah.
I think it's proof that private sector does a pretty good job at it right now,
Yeah.
at least locally in this example.
I agree. It's quite an operation. Does anybody want to pursue any other aspect of this right now?
No.
Pardon me?
No, I think.
Okay. I can give an update, Friends of the Saugatucket storm drain labeling project. I sent you the map, and that actually had 2 or 3 streets that we did that weren't yet on the map, but we had 5 volunteers, Mary Talbot Riano, myself, and Bill McCusker among them. I didn't recognize the names of the other 2 women, but in total, we put down 315 tags.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very successful. Well, I was out on one day doing Tower Hill Road, Old Tower Hill Road, and the heat was just incredible. I mean, there, no trees there. It was very hot, but we all did a lot, and it was very successful. It all got done.
Is it just a sticker, or are you putting some kind of a glue or like a?
It's glue. It's
It's an epoxy glue.
yeah, and it's a fiberglass. It seems. Is that right, Mary? Seems like a
I
fiber.
think so, yeah. It's a medallion. It's probably fiberglass or plastic of some kind.
But the adhesive is called something like
Decal sticker, decal
Yeah.
glue or something, yeah.
specific for that application. And there were 2 that I came across that were old, that had been done a few years ago. And I just tried getting up and they were scratched up and all, and one had a little corner, not a corner, but tab broken off, and I tried to get it up, and it wouldn't come for love or money. I mean, that adhesive really good. So I think it was a great project, and they're very bright colors too. Bright blue, bright green. I mean, they do catch your eye. You were to go over to there saying, I'll just dump this down there. You would have to think.
What does the medallion actually say?
It says, no dumping, drains to river. No dumping, top part, and then drains to river below. And then there's a logo of a river. So, like I say, it's eye-catching.
Yeah.
Item number 5, a new business, is the discussion on vandalism of the spruce tree in Eastdale Rotary. I have learned what really went on since writing my letter to the editor. And what bizarrely happened was there was somebody with a machete who had taken issue, this is Jay's explanation, who had taken issue with plantings that had been done there by a group that regularly maintains the Rotary. And he took the machete and took out all the plantings, or a majority of them, and then started macheteing the tree. So those limbs that were removed were already compromised and should be removed. So not knowing that and feeling very passionately about that tree, I wrote what I did. And so the group of people who usually maintain that Rotary took offense at my letter, and I can certainly understand why, and I do apologize for that. But I mean, it was a hallmark tree, and at this point, I don't know. I think someone has gone back and even cleaned up. It looked at as I drove. I didn't get out and look. Cleaned up the initial prunings, just to use really good arboriculture and do the best thing for the tree. It is a state tree because it intersects with 2 state roads. So I don't know who makes a final decision. Maybe the state urban forester, as to, does the tree get removed? Do we plant a new one? I don't know. It's not a town issue, but at any rate, I came down pretty heavy just because I was thrown by it. It was striking, and my passion for trees got the better of it. So, but that's what happened. I mean, a crazy guy with a machete just went wild. I don't know. I think the one account that I heard from a planning board member was the police took him to Butler Hospital, presumably for observation. But I don't know what. I also I wanted to verify this, and I called the police, and I called the records department, and left a message on the voicemail, and no one has gotten back to me yet. I would like to see that police report just to get the real full deal on it. And I'm also hoping that in this week's paper, it will be, there'll be a good article on it. So, but that's where we're at. And like I say, somebody did go back and do proper pruning of the stubs that were left protruding from the tree. So at this point, that it is now in the best outcome considering what happened to it. So,
Mr. Chair, I'll note that we do have a number of attendees, and we do have one with a hand raised to.
Sure, that'd be great.
Let me let in Mr. Patrick. Mr. Patrick, you're in the meeting. If you want to unmute and or turn on a video, there we go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
We can.
Okay, hi, my name is Joe Patrick, a longtime resident of South Kingstown, graduated in '81. Most people know me by my family nickname, Tiger Patrick, and I'm the commander of the VFW here in town. And I appreciate, Mr. Flanders, your apology. However, I wish that you had it's concerning to me as the head vigilante, as you put in your letter, that you didn't even reach out to any of those of us involved in that circle. So I will tell you factually, the last 2 months of, and actually is called the Isaac Peace Rodman Memorial Square, by the way. It's not a rotary, or when it was dedicated in 1937, it was a square back in the day. And so, but it is a rotary now, of course. But we have been maintaining, the VFW has many of the flags here in town, the prominent flags, including that one. And we just got involved in helping with the grounds with the Peacedale renovation very recently. And I will tell you, it's an emotional spot for me, having grown up here. And the bicentennial happened when it happened in 1976. I was hired by Etta Goodwin, Antoinetta, who
Oh, yeah.
was like a bird dog in our community for the bicentennial parade through Call Team. I was one of the kids planting flowers for the bicentennial parade. So it has a very tender, significant spot for me. We did not know, neither the VFW nor the piece of renovation, that it was damaged or had been attacked until really a couple of days, the week before Memorial Day. And we organized a group to get together through social media, a couple of grandmothers, including a woman who graduated from high school with my mom back in 1961. And my mom passed away 30 years ago this August. And so it was very nice to discover stories, but they brought plantings and such. And we've adopted the spot in the sense in the VFW, there's water that actually runs to that spot. So in the last month, aside from the damage that was done, we think, and RIPTA believes, and we're organizing and going through all of that, they actually pruned it sometime after late April. RIPTA was involved in clearing it basically someone had put in a request or a complaint that it was dangerous to line of sight. It is kind of crowded now with parallel parking along where Johnny Cake and the other store is on that side heading, I guess that would be heading north on 108. But they're not 100% sure. They have to go back and through the records. And so minimally, this person did attack and did some major damage, and it has been capped off by David Nickerson, who has been doing many things over the years on that spot with that tree, as far as with putting up lights and all of that. We are now very active in getting water back restored to that spot. Something's going on with it, and RIDOT is the only ones who can do that. They won't allow us to dig up this stuff, and because it has a water main going into it, so they're not allowing us to do that. So they're dealing with John Shock and the RIDOT folks. They're going to figure it out, and hopefully by the end of the month is what RIDOT says. What they may tell me one thing on the phone, and then reality is another. And so I will tell you that when we did do our volunteer work the Saturday before Memorial Day, we had a $1 million insurance, a COI or whatever it's called, basically to cover us in case somebody got hurt or injured. We were very organized. The police brought us donuts and coffee, and it was a great time, even though we were in the rain. We had little kids up to senior citizens helping. And so no power tools were used. And so, Mr. Flanders, I just wish you had reached out to John Shock or even Parks and Rec to kind of get an idea. If they knew anything, they would have forwarded you to us and we could have brought you up to speed. And so I get your passion and all of that, but you hurt a lot of feelings of some people that care passionately about that location just as much as you do. And so I think you just kind of, and as a town representative, as someone who has influence in the direction that the town council and our town goes in maintaining the historical and the coolness and with an eye on conservation, rash decisions shouldn't be something that we are concerned about with your committee. And so I'm just asking you from now on, if you have a concern, take a few minutes and look around, because if there are volunteers doing stuff, know that it's probably out of the goodness of our hearts, and there isn't any sort of, we're not just doing it because we think we can. No, a vigilante, I looked that word up, and that was totally opposite of what happened that day. And so that's all. And thank you for giving me a minute to explain what happened around it a little bit, and I appreciate your time.
Well, no, I appreciate your saying that, and I appreciate your work in the square, the Rotary, for all these years. So thank you. Next item of business is election of officers. I'll start by repeating what the various duties of the officers are. The chair, certainly according to the bylaws, makes up the agenda for each meeting. We have been very happy to have staff do that for us, but I've recently begun, well, Jay calls me or emails, do I have anything more to add? And as we close each meeting, I encourage all of us to, tell me or Jay things that should be on the agenda. Our Conservation Commission bylaws says that the chair makes it up, but I'm happy to keep the current, system going. And Jay does send it to me before it gets posted and sent to the members, just in case something else has come up in the meantime, or there's something that's been omitted or something that's not right. And then the chair runs the meeting. The vice chair is second in line to do those particular duties. And if the vice chair is unable to do that, the secretary does that. So that's basically because notes of the meeting are taken electronically and then transcribed in the planning department. That's what the vice chair and the secretary do. And so I will ask two questions that we can discuss at the same time. And one is there someone who is not serving on the as an officer who wants to? And the second question is there anyone serving as an officer who doesn't want to do that anymore? So both questions are on the table. I, for one, am happy to continue unless somebody else wants to take a turn. Ann?
I'm good. I'm good with how it is.
Mary?
I'm
You wanna-
okay, unless somebody wants the job.
Yeah.
Matt, you still willing to hang on?
Yep. Yeah, I'm comfortable with the way it's been running.
Okay. And Vern, do you want to act as an officer or Chris?
I think at this time, I'm still very happy to participate.
Okay.
More than to take any kind of leadership role right now.
Okey-doke. And Lorraine is not here.
How about Chris?
I haven't heard from him.
No,
Chris.
thank you.
Pardon me?
I'm content with the way things are. So no, thank you.
Okay. So we have a slate to vote on, and that is Matt Brady Wood as secretary, Mary Talbot Robiano as vice chair, and David Flanders as chair. Do I hear a motion?
I motion to keep,
Yep. Go ahead.
I move to keep it as is.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Last minute change of ideas? Hearing none. All those in favor of the re-electing the slate that we have now, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Correspondence and public comment. Brian, do you know of anything?
Jay didn't make me aware of anything today, so I would have to say that we don't have any. And we had the one item of public comment that I was anticipating for tonight's meeting. So we still do have one attendee in the meeting. If Ms. Lima has any particular issue that she would like to comment on, she can raise her hand and we'll pull her into the meeting and have a chat about that. All right, just in case Ms. Lima doesn't know the feature, if you move your mouse on your screen, there we go. Okay. I will, with the chair's permission, bring Ms. Lima into the meeting.
Please do.
Okay, Ms. Lima, you're in. If you'd like to unmute yourself, there we go.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for asking me if I wanted to talk. I really was just interested in hearing the conversation between David Flanders and Tiger Patrick around the Peaceville Rotary situation. So thank you for letting us listen in on the meeting this evening.
Glad to have you. Thank you. And you can always listen in, by the way. When you see the agenda posted, it gives you instructions on telephone access and internet access as well. So at any time you want to listen to see what we're doing and hear what we're doing, you can come on in.
I'm also a tree fanatic, so thank you.
Good to hear. Brian, is there any update from staff on planning department activities?
No, again, Jay did not provide me with any additional materials to talk about tonight.
Are you all back in the office at the same time, or are you still staggering your work days?
Oh, no, we've all been back in the office for quite a while now. Town hall is open, operating normally. I think the one exception to that might be the vault in the clerk's office where you still have to schedule time.
Mhm.
Just because it's a confined space.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing that would be appropriate for me to mention here is that you could expect to find yourself back at in-person meetings in in August.
Great.
The governor's last extension of the emergency order allowing for electronic meetings is scheduled to expire on July 23rd. And the legislature left the session without amending the Open Meetings Act to provide for a permanent mechanism for virtual meetings. So unless something happens between now and July 23rd, or unless the governor extends his order again, which he has said he wasn't going to do, we may be back with in-person meetings in August. So keep your eye out for that.
Sounds good. Sounds
Great.
good. Our next meeting date is August 3rd, Tuesday. And if anybody has anything they want to, include on the agenda, contact Jay or myself. We will be in touch with each other. So, and our second to last item is designating one of us to attend next Wednesday, July 14th, Technical Review Committee. They're usually scheduled for 9 o'clock, but the representative from the planning board can change that at any time. Well, not at any time, but it can change at the discretion of the planning board representative. And we've had meetings at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, at 10 o'clock. So Brian, you wouldn't happen to know at this point when it's scheduled for next Wednesday, do you?
Yeah, I should know that, but I don't have access to the virtual network tonight for some reason, so I can't look it up. It should have been selected at the last planning board meeting, because usually the member will designate whether they want a morning or an afternoon when they pick their representative.
Right.
But yeah, I would check with Jay on that.
Yep. And I was only asking just because it might affect someone's scheduled, can that person attend? If it's in the morning, can that person attend if it's in the afternoon? Because we're trying to get a volunteer now to do that.
Yeah, if I had access to the meeting minutes, I could look it up and see who volunteered and what time they picked, but I usually try and get on that before I start the meeting, and I couldn't get in tonight.
Okay. Well, given that information, is there anyone who wants to volunteer? You get a good window into a town process. It basically, technical review committee goes over, again, technical issues prior to the applicant going to the planning board. TRC knows what the planning board is looking for, in addition to having the planning board rep there. Being a member now, we can comment on anything that comes up, but generally, I had only been commenting on, say, tree planting specs, making sure that everyone is on the same page. If the landscape architect comes in with a particular subdivision and it's a different planting description cartoon than we have in our subdivision regulations, I just say, before you go to the planning board, swap out your drawing for ours, again, just so everybody's on the same page. So that's the most common thing I comment on, but we can comment on anything, such as impervious surface is one, relating to runoff is another. So these are all good things to be aware of, and it's been an interesting experience. So if anyone wants to do it, speak now. Otherwise, I can do it. Okay, I will do it.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Yep. And the last item is adjournment. Do I want to hear a motion for adjournment? You want to stay?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that was seconded by Ann, and motion was made by Mary. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we are adjourned, and time is 6:48.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Okay,
And thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, guys.
And
bye. Thank you.